Brows is the number one thing that can completely change your appearance, and it can also tell you what year your makeup is coming from. I have 8 brow mistakes today that we have all made, including myself, and how to fix them. The first mistake you are making is you are over plucking your brows. You all, I am guilty of this one. I know you can't tell because I have filled them in, but I am an 80s child, so I obviously lived through the 90s where we over plucked our brows. That was the trend back then. No one told us that our brows would not go back. So here I am years later. I've had microblading done, I've had tattooing, I've had all sorts of stuff done because my brows never grew back. I over plucked them. You guys, kids, anyone watching that is younger, please don't over pluck your brows. I have some examples here to show you of how some of these celebrities look completely different with their brows that are over plucked versus what they have now. So first one I have is Christina Aguilera. I feel bad. This is actually a horrible picture of her because she's a really beautiful woman, but in this picture you can see her brows are razor thin. This is obvious. I'm pretty sure this was from the 90s or early 2000s. You can see that it doesn't frame her face beautifully. They're just too thin. When you have thicker brows, they tend to make you look a bit more youthful, a little bit fuller, because naturally when we're younger, we have fuller brows and they tend to get thin as we get older. So having a really thin overplucked brow is instantly going to age us. The next example I have here is J-Lo. You see on the left that she has a little bit thinner brow. Now it's not as thin as Christina Aguilera's, but it's still thinner than what you see on the right side, which is her now. Do you see how she looks so much younger just having a bit fuller, natural, more fluffy type of brow? It instantly shaves years off of her face. And I'm pretty sure in these two pictures, she has 2 completely different ages, but yet on the right side, I feel that she looks a little bit younger simply because of how thick her brows are. Next, we have Angelina Jolie. This one I'm kind of torn on, you guys, because she looks great in both brows. I feel like with her features, because she has a very defined jawline, very defined cheekbones, her nose is very straight and chiseled, that for her, she can actually pull off a little bit of a thinner brow. But on the right side, she is much older than the picture on the left, but still she looks very young because those thicker brows just frame her face really nicely. But I will say in this example, she actually can pull off the thinner brow, which not many people can. And the last picture we have is Drew Barrymore, my favorite. I love her so much. I love Drew. I love every movie she's in. I adore her. You can tell this picture was from the 90s. She has that iconic thin brow that was very popular in that era. But if you see pictures of her with a fuller brow, she does look a little bit younger. I feel like in this picture, even though she's a beautiful woman, those thin brows just don't frame her face as nicely. It kind of, in my opinion, throws off the balance of the face a little bit. You need a little bit fuller of the brow just to really bring emphasis to the eyes, frame the face, kind of balance out the lower part of the face with the upper part. In my opinion, it always just looks better having a little bit fuller brow. Next mistake you are making is you are using the wrong brow shade. Okay, I have some examples to show you all of some really brow shades. I am guilty of this one. My brows naturally are pitch black, you all. I have to actually bleach them. I've done a video on Instagram if you want to follow me on there. I can do a dedicated video on here if you all want, but I have to bleach my brows and then dye them to actually get them the right color because naturally they are pitch black. And my hair now, especially as I've gone blonder, it's way too harsh with how fair my skin is. So I have to lighten them to get them to be a good shade. So here's my natural brows, you all. They're very thin, as you can tell, but see how dark they are? They're not horrible, but with my hair being this kind of blonde color, I like to lighten them just a little bit so they're less harsh, especially because they're so thin. You're gonna laugh at me at what I use to bleach my brows. I just go to the drugstore and I get the Sally Hansen set. I'll try to find a better brow reach, you guys. I looked online. This is all I can find. So I just go to the drugstore and get this. So let me show you how to mix it real quick. So first you're gonna start with the activator, which is this powder. I just put a little bit in there. I just eyeball it, you all. And then you take the cream hair bleach and just put the same amount in there. And it comes with this little spoon. You're just gonna mix it up like this. That's it. Now that it's mixed, I just take a little bit of that and I'm going to put it on the brows. I just got it on my eyelid. Don't get it on your eye, you guys. It will burn. And then I put a lot on there like that. I really want to get it in the brow hairs. And then I take the spatula, I just really work it into the hairs because I really want the bleach to get in there. And then because it is bleach and I don't want it just sitting on my skin, I take a Q-tip and I just clean off the skin like that. I know I look crazy, you guys. I know you all are laughing your butts off right now. But I'm telling you, this works, you all. I've been doing this for probably 20 years now and it never fails me. Okay, now we're gonna let this sit for about 5 minutes or so. I keep checking in the mirror to see if it's lightened a little bit, but I give it about 5 to 7 minutes or so. You don't wanna leave it on too long or it will turn orange. I've learned that the hard way. Okay, so it's been about 5 minutes. I take a white washcloth and wet it, and then I just wipe this off, and then I'll show you the results you all can see. Okay, I don't know if you all can tell on camera, they're still brown, but they're more of a light kind of caramelly brown versus a dark, dark brown. It just lightens it about 1 or 2 shades, which is what I want. So do you see how now it kind of goes along with my hair and it looks a little bit less harsh? Generally, you want to adjust your brows if you are lightening your hair. So if I am wearing blonde, I want my brows to be a little bit lighter. But when I have dark brown or even that dark plummy shade, I can go a little bit darker with the brows. You kind of want the brows not to be too far off your actual hair color, or it can look a little bit harsh. One example here is Angelina Jolie. You can see her brows here are almost pitch black. Now her hair is dark, but if you want to soften the face a little bit, go 1 or 2 shades lighter than your hair. Not too far off from that hair color, but still a little bit softer. Like for her in this picture, she has super fair skin, and her having those really dark brows in contrast to how light her skin is a little bit too harsh. She looks better with more of a deep chocolate or kind of a neutral brown shade versus black. Going to the opposite side of the spectrum, I couldn't tell which celebrity this was. Is this I can't tell if this is Nicole Richie. I don't reckon. It looks like Nicole Richie, but you can see from her brows, they're very thin, but they're also super light. So in her case, I would almost go 1 or 2 shades darker than blonde. So if you have really light colored hair, go 1 or 2 shades darker to kind of balance out the face and bring some dimension in. If you go really light blonde, if you have light blonde hair, it can kind of wash you out a little bit. So I think for her, she needs a little bit darker of a brow shade. And then the next picture we have is Drew Barrymore. Again, she's beautiful. I don't know why I'm using her as an example, you all, but in this picture specifically, her brows are too dark. Do you see how her hair is blonde? Her brows are several shades darker than her blonde hair. So I would say if she'd lighten them up a little bit to be kind of a light or medium brown versus a dark brown, it would go better with the hair color that she has in this picture. And then the last one we have is Michelle. So her hair is almost a platinum color. So for her, her brows are a little bit too dark compared to her hair color. If her hair was a little bit darker, her brows would be absolutely perfect because her brows look really beautiful here. It's just that they're a little bit too dark considering how light her hair is. If she would lighten it up like 1 or 2 shades, I think it would soften her features a little bit and blend a bit better with her hair color. Next mistake you're making is you're not using 2 shades for your brows. Okay, hear me out on this one. So do I use 2 shades every single day? No, I don't. The purpose of having 2 shades is naturally you want the inner half of your brow to be a bit more sparse and a little bit lighter than the outer half of your brow. What that's going to do is not close off your eyes. It's going to still frame your face, but not to be too heavy in the center, which can kind of weigh the eyes down and make them not look as open or awake. So what you can do is get a brow pencil in 2 shades and use a lighter shade to fill in the inner half, stopping at the arch, and then switch to a darker shade and you can fill in the outer half. And I'm telling you all the dramatic difference that you're going to see. Your brows are not going to look quite as heavy. It's just going to frame your eyes very beautifully. Now, if you don't want to invest in 2 different colors of brows, what you can do is use the same one, but the technique, just go a lot more sparse in here so it's not as filled in, and then fill it in a little bit more here. It's almost like the ombre brow, but we're not going to be super dramatic of it. It's just going to keep those eyes open and make you look more awake. I'm going to show you how I fill in my brows with 2 shades. I have 2 pencils by Refi and they're different colors. Let me show them for you guys. Okay, it's subtle. One's a little bit darker, one's a little bit lighter. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You can take the same brow color and just go a lot more light in here. So let me show you that. So I've got my brow pencil. I have to fill in under here because again, I lost a lot of hairs underneath. So I'm gonna take the pencil and fill it in. I'm also gonna fill in a little bit up here just to define that arch. And then I really wanna fill in the tail of the brow. Take the spoolie, kind of comb it through. And then in here on the center part of my brow, I'm just gonna do a couple strokes because I'm missing a couple hairs here, but I'm gonna do them kind of sparse. Do you see how it's not solid in here? It's a little bit more sparse. That's using the same brow color pencil. And then I'm gonna take a brow gel that's a little bit lighter. This is the NYX one. Do you see how it's kind of a light warm brown? Let me just comb this up so you guys can see. Do you see how it's just a little bit lighter in here? It's kind of the ombre effect. I wish I had like model brows to show you guys. Mine are not the best example, but if you come in here too dark or too heavy, it can close off the eyes and make them a little bit more heavy. Like even for me, I'd like this to be a little bit lighter in here, but I can't because my hair's right here really dark and thick. But you want the outer tail of the brow to be a little bit thicker so it defines it, but in here not so heavy, if that makes sense. So let me do this side now with 2 different colors. Next mistake we have is overfilling your brows. Do you all remember the 2016 era? What a time to be alive. I am guilty of this one as well. I did the IG brows, the Instagram brows that were super famous in 2016. We all were wearing them. But looking back at it now, when I see them, I'm like, oh, no. They were just so overfilled in. And especially now, if you're doing that same technique, there is no judgment passing to anyone who likes to have a very strong brow. I just feel like if you were looking for a more natural look, having something that's not quite as overfilled in is going to look natural. It's not going to be as harsh. It's going to frame your eyes a little bit more softly versus this Instagram brow was just really, really strong, which was the trend at that time because we all were wearing a lot heavier makeup, very full glam and things like that. But now that the makeup is a little bit softer, having a softer brow to match it is going to be a bit more updated. I have a couple examples here to show you. The first one here, you see on the left how she has that feathered brow, and then on the right you have the Instagram brow. The feathered brow looks a bit softer. It's not as harsh. It's a bit more wearable. It just frames her eyes very nicely. It's still a solid brow. It's a thick brow. It looks beautiful, but it's not quite as harsh as the Instagram brow on the right. Next one we have is the ultimate IG brow, very filled in, especially the tail. It is almost solid. I can get this brow a little bit. Sometimes I have to really check myself of overfilling them in, but I notice when I leave a little bit of sparsity in the brow, it's just softer and it doesn't come across as harsh or dramatic. Third picture here, same thing. I mean, it looks beautiful with this full glam look. We have a very dramatic lashes going on. It looked great at that time, but I think if we saw that now, we'd be like, looking a little bit dated if we just soften it a little bit. And then we have James Charles here. Obviously, we have that thick, his brow is very straight. So we have like a straight, very blocky brow. Again, this is a certain brow style. I'm not judging anyone who wants to overfill them, but I think in general, if you just allow some hair strokes, especially on the inner part of the brow, you all right in here, this is where it gives it away. It can look very harsh if you really overfill in here. So if you like a fuller looking brow, try to keep it on the outer half, not the inner half, because then it's not going to close off the eyes. It's not going to close off the face. It's not going to give you the kind of that almost unibrow type of look. If you keep it a little bit feathery in here, and then if you want to fill it in the outer half, it's going to frame the eyes, but it's not going to close them off, if that makes sense. Next mistake you are making is you are ignoring your natural brow shape. Okay, we all have a natural brow shape. I get a lot of crap online sometimes, you guys, because my brows naturally are very arched. That's just how they are. They've been like that for a long time. And I think because when I over plucked them, I plucked a lot underneath. So they naturally, the hairs are just gone underneath. So it made them even more arched. A lot of people are like, oh, stop with the Botox. I'm like, I actually don't get much Botox anymore. My brows just naturally have that arch to them. And if I were to flatten out my brow and try to fill it in a lot down here, it makes my eyes look heavy because naturally my natural brow is arched like that. So if I try to change it, it just doesn't fit my features. So if you have a more flat brow, don't be trying to change it to arched. It's going to look off on your face. Try to, when you fill it in, keep the same shape that you naturally have, just enhanced a little bit. So I have some examples here. First one is Angelina Jolie. Do you see how highly arched her brow is? That's because it's overplucked. So this is kind of the same issue that I have as I overplucked it and we plucked underneath. Her brow looks very high here. So it doesn't frame her eyes nicely. It looks a little bit odd with her features because her brow naturally is not that arched. Next one we have is Demi Lovato. You can see that whoever filled it in, they went really heavy on the inner part and they went almost like a kind of a V-shaped type of arch, which her natural brow shape I don't think is like that. I think it's more of a soft rounded arch. So if they would just fill it a little bit here under the high point of the arch and kind of round it off a little bit, it would look much more natural. Then we have this next actress. I'm so sorry, I can't remember her name. She's stunning, but do you see how her brows are very straight? That is iconic to her look. When you see her, the first thing that you notice is she has those very full kind of straight looking brows. If she was to change that brow to be super arched, it would almost be like it's not even the same person. It's something so iconic that just fits her natural features. It looks beautiful on her. So if she were to mess with that, it just wouldn't work. And the next one we have is Miley Cyrus. She was known for having a very straight brow as well. Again, if she were to try to fill in her brows and make it super arched, I don't think it would match her look. That kind of straight brow is so iconic to her face. That's recognizable as being Miley's look. If she changed it, just wouldn't look like her. And the next one is Megan Fox, where she has a natural kind of soft arched brow, which is iconic to her face. If she was to make it more of a straight brow, I think it would be too heavy for her eye shape and how almond shape and kind of smaller her eyes are. If she had that straight brow, it would be too heavy. So naturally her genetic makeup having those rounded arched brows fits her features and balances out her face. Okay, so here's the straight brow, and then here's how I would naturally fill it in with the arched brow. Do you see how this side to me is making my eye look heavier? Now, someone who was born with straight brows is gonna look amazing on them. But for me, because I was born with a little bit more arched eyebrows, that's what I meant to have that fits my features, if that makes sense. Look at this side and look at this side. This, for me personally, in my opinion, makes my eyes look a little bit more heavy. It looks a little bit more tired on this side because this brow is not my natural brow shape. It doesn't match my features. So all of that is to say, you guys, whatever brow shape you were born with, embrace it, love it, enhance it, but don't try to change it. Next brow mistake you're making is you are skipping a brow gel. So this is the unruly brows. You all, I'm guilty of this one as well. I didn't used to wear a brow gel until recently, and now I need it because as I've gotten older, my brows are super unruly. They're like kind of curly. I don't know what is going on. So I have to wear a brow gel. This is a super easy fix, you all. If you feel like your hairs are kind of all over the place and you don't have time to fill it in, the easiest thing honestly you can do is make sure that you comb a brow gel through it. Now I will say this, you all, if you have unruly brows and you have long hairs, I really recommend trimming them. A lot of people don't talk about this or recommending it, but if you were to trim your brows, so I just comb them up. I already did it today, but you'll comb them up and then you'll trim them a little bit and then just put a brow gel or a wax through them. If you're the type of person that doesn't like to spend a lot of time in your brows, you just don't have time doing just those two things, trimming them and combing a nice brow gel through them is instantly going to make them look more sleek, not as unruly. They're going to look a lot more put together and frame your face more beautifully versus leaving them kind of unruly and all over the place. So use a brow gel. So here's my brow super natural. I haven't done anything at all, and I want to show you, I'm just going to take some brow gel, what a difference it makes. Now I've trimmed my brow hairs here, so they aren't super unruly, but I want to show you even what a difference it makes with just brow gel. This is without me filling them in or anything, but just taking a simple brow gel and brushing them in. It can be tinted like this. I used kind of a warm color. This is the NYX one, super inexpensive because my hair's kind of warm with the color that I have going on right here. Do you see the difference? It's slight between this side and this side. Just adding a bit of brow gel if you're in a hurry makes a huge difference on how polished your face can come across. Even without me wearing any makeup or anything at all, just brushing that through the brows instantly kind of frames my eyes a little bit better and makes my brows not look so crazy. Next brow mistake we're making is we're neglecting symmetry. Now, this one is kind of tricky, all because no one has completely symmetrical brows. No one. I don't care if you are a supermodel, whoever. Brows are always cousins and not sisters. I think that's kind of the saying that goes around. So don't expect your brows to be perfectly even, but you want to try when you're filling them in to get them as even as possible. So I'll show you guys an example with mine. So what I like to do is pick a favorite brow. My favorite brow is my right brow here. I feel like it's filled in a little bit more. It has more of a natural shape. This one is super thin on the tail, but also I'm missing some hairs right here. So I have to consciously try to match this brow. So I start with this brow first and fill it in. And then I go to this brow and then I'll start to try to fix it a little bit. And I have to bring my arch up a little bit higher here to match my other brow. I have to also do a couple strokes in here in the inner corner because I'm missing hairs here and I want it to match this brow. So I have to consciously, every time I do my brows, I'm like, okay, this is the good one. We're gonna match this one. I try to get it to be like sisters and get this one to line up, and I have to strategically fill it in certain places to get them to match. So when you sit down and do your makeup, you all look in the mirror and just really evaluate, okay, what's my favorite brow? Fill that in first, and then look at the other brow and try to say, okay, what is missing? Do I need to arch it more? Do I need to fill it in more on the inner corner? Do I need to extend the tail a little bit? What do I need to do to make this brow match as closely as possible to my favorite brow? Next mistake we have is not filling in the tail of the brow. So I think a lot of this, when we go to fill in our brows, we just worry about, you know, the inner corner, maybe right here, but we don't actually think of how far the tail of the brow needs to come. And that is a huge part, you all, huge part of what can actually change on your face. I want to show you because I'm going to extend my brow. Okay, if you have a short brow, so say your brow is to stop right here and you don't extend it out, it can actually make the top of your face look a little bit wider. So you want to make sure the tail of your brow is going to, if you were to put a pencil on the tip of your nose to the edge of your eye, right there, that's where you want the tail to stop ideally. And that's kind of where mine stopped there. But if you want to make the face, the top of the face look wider, say you have a really strong jawline and you want to balance it out, one trick that you can do is extend the brow a little bit. And I'm going to do it here so you all can see. Just kind of fill that out here. And you don't want to come down too far. Look at my face on this side compared to this side. Do you see how it's making the top part of my face look wider, which can then balance out the jawline? So even though the rule is that you need to stop at the edge of your eye, if you want to extend it a little bit more, it can change your face and make this look a bit wider to balance out a wider jaw. So there's different tricks that you can do. It could be the same thing with shortening your brow. Maybe you want to bring it in a little bit closer and you want to erase the last part of that. It can make this look a little bit more open. It can also lift the eyes if you're going to bring it in a little bit because it's more open here. So play around with the tail of your brow, you all. Don't feel like you can only fill it in on the inner part of the brow. You can really play with the length of the end of it and see what you like. See what maybe changes your face a little bit. You'd be shocked, you all, shocked at how much of a difference your face can completely change just by how far out or far in your tail is going to go, and also how much you lift it. You can also, let me try to erase this, you guys, hold on, because you can also play with the height of it. If I want to bring the outer brow, if I want to fill it in slightly, I mean, I don't want to go too far away from a natural brow because it'll look obvious that we're drawing it in, but I can always fill in the tail of my brow on top versus below, and that can lift the brow too, which can give a lifting effect to the eye. So I want you guys to really practice this week and play with the tail of your brow specifically, lengthwise and height-wise, and see what it does to your face and how much it changes your features. Okay, how many of these brow mistakes are you guilty of? Because I think I'm guilty of at least 6 of these, you all, I've done in my lifetime. So hopefully these tips were helpful for you. Come back next week for another makeup video.